Welcome everybody to Frax Check, your weekly Frax vibe check. I'm your host, Capital K, and as always, I'm joined by our producer extraordinaire, Sam. Dave is traveling today, so Sam will be subbing in for the governance check for us, all right? We will be going straight to the source of truth via checking the chain. But before we jump in, please subscribe to the Flywheel Pod. We recently passed our 1,100 subscriber, and we're on the march to 10K. So please help us out and smash that subscribe button. And also follow us at Flywheel Pod on Twitter and Telegram. This week, oh boy, this week, on the Frax Check, aside from what's happening outside in the market, I call this week the We Told Ya week, and you'll see what I mean. And for those that were here last week on Frax Check, they know what I mean. Let's begin with our regular programming, the peg check. Here we take a look at the Frax peg for the last week, and we see that we trended between 0.999 and $1. Peg check strong. We then went to the markets to see how the exchange rate is behaving in the market, and we use Curve Finance for this. I am a fan of the old classic Curve UI rather than the new one, so we're going to keep on using that. And what I did here was I took $100 million of Frax and I swapped it for USDC to see what kind of exchange rate I would receive. And here we have an exchange rate of 0.9991 for $100 million of Frax USDC, even amongst this market turmoil. Curve swap, check. Moving on, we have our collateralization percent. And if you recall, I'm starting to use a new collateralization ratio, the one that is being put on SEBA's dashboard, because we need to look at the collateralization percent of the outstanding Frax, aka the non-Frax DAO controlled Frax. As a reminder, Frax protocol owns a lot of its own Frax, and theoretically, Frax won't ever redeem its own underlying collateral backing. So the only real collateral ratio that we need to monitor is the one of the outstanding Frax, which is currently at 92%, an increase of 1.2% over last week. So very clear, the market is scared and the collateralization ratio going to go up. Very, very expected. On the right-hand side, we have the decent percent. Here it stands for decentralized percent. So what percent of the underlying collateral are decentralized collateral? And unfortunately, Sam, this week we hit ATL, not Atlanta. I'm talking about all-time low of 14%, okay? We have an all-time low of 14% on the decentralization ratio. Not great. And for those who are new to the channel, we want to see the collateralization ratio at around the low 80s, and we want to see the decent percent back to the mid 30s. Okay, that's where we want it to be at, and that was where we were during the bull. Yeah. Okay, quick summary of the health. Peg check strong, curve swap strong, collab percent not great, decent percent all-time low. Not great. But I do have a new segment for you guys, and I'll be adding this going forward to every single Frax check. And this is why today's theme was called We Told Ya. So let's do a recap on what happened with Frax ETH. So Frax ETH, we always start with a peg check. Why? Because Frax ETH is still technically a stablecoin. It's just a stablecoin that is paired against ETH instead of the US dollar. And Frax does stablecoins the best. It's what they do. So we see here that the Frax ETH peg between Frax ETH to ETH is 0.9991, which represents a 9 bips difference between the two. But you can't always just look at this one Oracle price. You have to go into the market and see what's up. Here we went to the Frax ETH pool on Curve, which currently has about like 6.4 million in liquidity, and I just did a 700 Frax ETH swap, which is about $1 million. And you see here, our exchange rate is 0.9948. Very healthy, very, very healthy for a good chunk of Frax ETH to swap. And another thing I wanted to point out is there is 42% of the supply of Frax ETH in the Curve pool right now. Wow. We told you. Last week was 12%. Okay. We told you. And we try to tell you to get in there early so that there's no imbalance. As you can see here, there's an imbalance between ETH and Frax ETH of about like 4%, give or take. So, you know, if you had gone in last week, you wouldn't have eaten the slippage. But regardless, we shall move forward. And let's take a look at what it looks like next week. And Sam, here we have a chart that is up only. I know you like up only charts, and that is the Frax.
The up only chart.
It is 5,343, which represents an increase of 60% over last week. Holy hell. That is a lot of ETH just getting jammed in there. Granted, in the grand scheme of things, we're still a baby toy relative to, you know, the Lido and the Steph and the big boys, but we are climbing. We are climbing. On the right-hand side, you see the stake percent. And for those new to Frax ETH, the way the Frax ETH architecture is that once Frax ETH is essentially the same as WETH. However, for you to earn the yield from the Frax ETH, you have to stake it into sFrax ETH. And for those that don't stake into sFrax ETH, those that do earn a higher percent. But you may ask, why would you not stake Frax ETH? Well, you saw earlier in the Curve pool, you actually earn yield from Convex, CRV, and as well as FXS soon on all the gauges to offset the, I guess, foregone yield on the native ETH staking. And we see here there's about 58% of Frax ETH being staked into sFrax ETH. And you know, the market is just so good, Sam, because on Curve, it's basically 7%. And on Frax ETH, you earn about like 5 to 7%. And the split is almost right in the middle, right? 43, 57. Like the market is like really efficient. Like everyone here like knows what's going on.
Well, I mean, the movement costs are, I mean, since there's no lockup in the stick Frax ETH, right? You can just move back and forth, right? So I'm sure you could write a script that just rebalances your collateral between the two. Yeah, absolutely. But that's great. And I mean, like, look, it's making. Can we do a? We should add in a yield check. So I'm going to check this right now. So let's check
I was about to say. I did check the yield. Yeah. So for the Frax ETH yield, it's about 6.5%, right? And for the Frax ETH staked yield, which is the native ETH staking yield, is about 5 to 7%. So that's why I said like the market is actually pricing it just right with a split in the middle between where all the Frax ETH and ETH should go.
No, I was talking about the comparison between like how much more yield do you earn in Frax ETH versus like Steth.
Yeah. I could add that.
I'm looking at Convex right now. So the Convex pool for ETH Steth, right, is getting 7.07%. That's really for a $646 million pool. That's pretty awesome.
Massive.
And then the Frax ETH one is getting. Well, I guess Convex hasn't spun up yet completely, right?
Yeah, so I don't think the bribes has even really started yet either.
So I don't think the okay. So I'm looking at the Curve pool. Curve says you get 2.92% base APY from Steth
and boosted,
and then you get 2.82% Lido, right? But the boost is nothing, honestly. Like there's no CRV incentives going to Steth. Most of the incentive is from they have a Steth concentrated pool, right? Steth concentrated pool, which is like West Steth, but that is getting like 4.5%, 4.5 to 6%. So you're getting almost like at least the 3% more by being in the Frax ETH pool, which is very, very, very juicy.
Attractive. Yeah, I agree. And I mean, on top of that, I checked the Vodium and Llama Air Force, and no bribes were kind of given on Frax ETH yet. So the Flywheel has yet to really, kick off. So here's where I'm going to insert the famous words soon TM. So let's do a quick summary on how we did. The peg check, we're off by 9 basis points between Frax ETH and ETH. Curve swap, swapping $1 million worth of Frax ETH will give you a 0.9948. And the current Frax ETH count is 5,343, with 58% of that being staked in as Frax ETH. And the remaining 43% or so is hanging out in Curve. As expected, given the yield is pretty much the same on both sides. Now, let's jump into our Amo Holdings. We see here that it's pretty much unchanged over the last week, right? We are down by like 50 bips, so not really big changes here. And what's interesting for me is I started looking into this, but I don't think Frax has a Frax BP AMO yet. And I'm kind of curious as to why. So if any viewers kind of know what's going on here, I'd love to get some highlight into this. But I'll also be doing some digging on my end, and maybe by next week I can have something for you guys. Okay, moving on to our profitability. All right, remember, it's going to look a little scary, but remember, we are only in the beginning of the second week of earning our prepaid yield, okay? So right now, we are down $1 million, but we only earned, like I said, half of what we paid for so far. And we're at a 0.57 million in revenue across CRV, CVX, and FXS. And like I said, the bribes are paid in 2 weeks period. So we're going to get the latter half of our yield in the coming week. And we'll obviously be reporting that next week on Frax Check as well. So quick summary on what's going on with the money check. AMO, we're basically unchanged at 608 million. And for profitability, we're down about 1.1 million so far, but we're yet to realize the remaining of our yield until next week. So here's my favorite section of the Frax Check. This is the liquidity check. And you know, we're going up against one of the biggest beasts in DeFi, the almighty 3 pool. And I am very happy to report we are towing the line. We were 95% last week. This week we're holding at 94. So we're still there. We're still hanging on. We're giving that good fight. Even through all this market turmoil, we are here and we want to be here for all that is paired against the Frax BP. Speaking of those who are paired against the Frax BP, we got to take a look at, before that, let's take a look at across the 3 of the largest stablecoin pools on Curve, which is the Frax BP, the 3 pool, and the Frax 3 CRV. We saw a bump of about 50 bips in our Frax base pool, pretty much unchanged. And you see how close we are to overtaking the 3 pool. That's at 94. So tune in next week and we'll see what happens. But on more exciting news, we have the Metapools that I wanted to talk to you guys about. And the Metapools, reminder here, are that pools that are paired against the base pool. An example would be like LUSD and Frax BP. Last week, we hit the 9-figure club. This week, we left the 9-figure club. We are at 93 million. So we're down 7%. Like I said, away from the 9-figure club, but we'll get back there. And if any project out there is looking to work with the Metapool, please join the Flywheelpod, Telegram chat, ping us, DM us. We'll try to get you guys paired up with the Metapool here. There's still a lot of liquidity from the base pool that could be put to good use. So now on top of that though, base pool aren't just paired against stable assets. Base pool could also be paired against non-stable assets. And we see here that the non-stable assets increased from 11 million to 15 million over the last week. So quick shout out to all the non-stable pairs like, CVX, FXS, Badger, Frax BP, Reserve, Frax BP, any non-stable pairs can also be paired against Frax BP. So please keep that in mind when you're thinking of where you want your next liquidity to come from. In aggregate, we have the TVL of 108 million across both stables and non-stable pair. So we're still in the 9-figure club cumulatively, but we still want to get back to our all-time high and just resume up only next week, please. So summary time. On the liquidity check, Frax base pool, about 739 million, 94% of 3 pool. And for the Metapools, we're at 93 million for the stables. We left the 9-figure club. And TVL of all pairs against the Metapool is 108 million. Now, remember, we do all of this for one thing, and that is to increase the Frax supply and get that baby as big as possible. I don't know how I feel. It's basically just been flat for the last 3 weeks, ever since that one big down move. I mean, I get it that the team is trying to grow steady and strong and slow and steady. I mean, but I just want to see this number back to where we were at, like nearly 3 billion in the bull market, right? Sam, you see that? Like, I'm so reminiscent of that part right there. But it's all right. We will. I know. Look at this like crazy mountain, but we'll get back there. This week is just one of those weeks. So, but without further ado, we're going to dive into the governance roundup. All right, Sam, take us away.
Can I just say something? We're recording this as Up Only is recording right now. And I don't know if this is legal, but Martin Shkreli has just joined the chat along with stablecoin. Like, what is this timeline? Like, what is this timeline? Like, just when you think that this entire industry couldn't get any crazier, you like.
Oh my god!
Props to Shkreli though. I like Shkreli. He's a good guy. I used to watch his live streams back before he went to prison. Very smart dude.
He's the farmer, bro.
But yeah. Enjoy being the villain.
God. Okay.
I know. Like, just what is his timeline though?
Oh my god, dude!
Like
guys,
FTX gets by. Like Ken and I were talking about earlier that one of, it's a blessing and also a curse at the same time that Frax has remained staunchly independent of any major like VC or fund or exchange or any really like outside influence who could have a negative effect on Frax, right? So we dodged a bullet with Luna, right? So I mean that was really like the first outside major partnership that the Frax had looked at in its entire existence, was to like kind of bind itself to Luna in the 4 pool and just go up only after that, right? And maybe it would have worked. I don't know. Maybe like the whole Luna thing would have worked out in a different timeline, but it didn't. We dodged a bullet, and thankfully from then, I mean, like Frax doesn't have any ties to any exchanges. So when you have these blowups of like FTX today, like I'm sure there's going to be some knock-on effects, but it's not like we're not like tied to Solana ecosystem. We're not tied to any outside thing other than the Ethereum network, right? Ethereum is the only thing that Frax is tied to, and maybe USDC. So like God forbid, inshallah, anything happens to USDC. I doubt it, but you never know in these markets today. But if you saw Tether or USDC blow up, I mean, like, God, I'm just retiring. I'm not even retiring, but I'm going to McDonald's to get a job. Like, put it on the hat. Fill out my McDonald's application.
I'll join you there.
I'm done. I'm just done after that, right? I'm going to go we always ask that question in the interviews, like, what would you be doing if it wasn't for crypto? I'd probably have to rethink that again and think about what would I be doing if the OTC blows up.
Dude, if that happens, you and I and Dave we'll just interview each other on the last Flywheel and we'll ask ourselves.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness, dude. It's so crazy. It's so crazy. I'm so glad we have friends and loved ones around us and fellow degens to kind of go through this timeline together, right? Like, and I hope everybody out there, all the audience listening, you guys have your group and your clique that just kind of helps you through this bear market, because this is peak bear market things, like peak. So
Maybe.
Like,
maybe.
no,
I like. Is this is
you're right,
is FTX blowing up to like peak market bear things?
Oh, you're right. Maybe.
I hope.
Oh, I mean,
But
I don't know how my portfolio is going to take this, bro.
Well, so Frax share is like just under $6 right now.
Yeah.
I think there's going to have to be a lot of unwinding. So we may have some pretty bad vibes for the next few weeks because everybody that has Alameda's exposure is going to have to be like covering those loans or figuring out like where in the chain they are and if they have stables in Frax or something. I mean, hopefully they've locked it up for years and they can't touch it. But oh my God, ETH is under 1,400 again.
14,
oh
I see that right now
like,
too.
I'm gonna put away the chart and read some forum stuff.
Oh yeah. Back to the regular programming.
Busy day in the busy week in the forums. On a good note, Gearbox AMO passed.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Nice.
First, like I didn't know this, but it was the first like third party AMO that's been approved for Frax in quite a while. So it's representative of Frax's ability to distribute funds is opening up into a new space. So that's really cool. Also, we had a very contentious, hotly debated rage quit FIP. So that was the 20% rage quit for Temple Gauge. I believe it was, I'm just waiting for it to pull up. It was like FIP 123, right? Very contentious name calling going on inside the chat. People being like just straight up aggressive towards C2T or CT2P or CT2P. Really getting some very heated chats about this whole Temple unlock. There's a big, I'm in this camp where 3 years is 3 years, right? And it doesn't go, it's going against like the entire ethos of having Frax liquidity locked, right, for this period of time and not allowing for a rage quit. And it passed. I mean, it barely passed. So it actually had nearly a record number of votes. So 30 million to 26 million.
Wow.
Convex, yeah. So Convex voted, and it was pretty much split 50-50. So Convex, C2TP added his vote, but from Convex, but it was a split vote. And I think there was just a couple of people. You look, it was like Frax Ape.
What was the issue, Sam? What was the issue? Just you catch up the listeners.
Well, Temple's been having some issues. They're like providing a floor in the price where people can sell out, and Temple will buy it back because after the whole stacks thing, it's just been a mess for a couple of weeks now. Also, Temple wants to move away from Frax into the balancer pools for their own reasons, and so they just want to move away from Frax. So the general kind of view from the Frax core team was that a 3-year lock is a 3-year lock. There shouldn't really be any allowance to break those locks beforehand. And on the other side, they're like, look, let's just introduce this rage quit function. There's going to be a 20% haircut, and all that will go towards protocol and liquidity. So Frax will probably make around, if everybody does it, I think Frax is slated to make about I think it's either 2.8 million or 3.4 million. I forgot the number, but all that will essentially go back. And Temple is providing a floor too. It's like a one-time thing. You don't know what the Temple price is going to be in 3 years. So I think that's the only reason that it was passed. Hopefully this does not become like a common occurrence, because it's just it feels pretty. I think it feels a little icky in what happened. Feels like it was kind of rushed through just because of the Temple providing the floor and the uncertainty about what's going to happen. So I don't know. I voted no on this one. I don't know how you voted, but it passed very contentiously. But that's the role of governance, right? Okay, so everything else for this week, when we talk about governance, is really just so there's 4 increases for Fraxland AMO. So increasing the CRV Fraxland from 5 million to 15 million, increasing CVX from 5 to 10 million, increasing WBTC from 5 to 10 and WETH from 5 to 10 million as well too. So these are all just like expanding the balance sheet as that Frax can put into the AMOs because there has been significant demand. I know that the CRV that was deposited, essentially all the CRV liquidity was taken in like one day, right? Some like big CRV whale came in and dumped like 15 or $20 million into Fraxland and took all that ETH, right?
Right.
So increasing, yeah. Hey, let me take a look. Let me take a look at it right now. So currently there's 5.5 million of CRV, there's 5 million Frax that's borrowed against a lot of CRV. Like it's not there. Also, FPI is maxed out as well too. Pretty much. So there's $5 million worth of Frax and $3.6 million of FPI borrows. So a lot of these are starting to get a lot of use, right? And so this just increases the AMO limits for each of them. I also saw in the forums that there's let me go back. I proposed adding FPIS. Originally, it was like a $2 million AMO, but after discussion inside the chat, I brought it down to 500,000, which seems reasonable, right? I mean, it's a $12 million asset, and that's a lot of exposure. So that seems reasonable. And then anything else after that, the 500K can be put in based on the interest rates. And then the second one, which I thought was really interesting, was the FXS Frax pair gauge on Fraxland. So this one would allow for you to put LP tokens, your Frax shares Frax LP tokens, into Fraxland to borrow against, which is interesting. I guess like if you're borrowing against it, there's not too much risk, right? Because your funds are already your funds have already provided liquidity, and they're stuck there until you pay back your loan. So it's not like the increased liquidity is like a bad thing, right? If it was just like a single asset thing, maybe it would be an issue. But in this case, because the liquidity is there and it's essentially locked at that point once you put it into Fraxland, it doesn't seem like too much of a risk. So we'll see if I'm pretty sure that one will pass as well too.
I think so. Yeah. I'm excited for the Frax ETH LP to be collateralizable.
Yeah. I'm waiting for all the convex. I don't know why C2TP just hasn't come in, like started adding all the convex pairs, right? Like, why can't I do staked Frax base pool, right, and borrow against that? Or why can't I do I think convex is probably like waiting for these initial tests done, but I would assume that like every single convex pair is going to be added to Fraxland at some point. Just makes sense, right?
Yeah, I mean, as long as there is enough liquidity to kind of go in there and slash the collateral to pay back the debt, as long as that threshold meets, you probably won't have like the really far tail convex pairs, but I think all the majors will probably end up going on there.
Yeah, I mean, but you think about the big ones, right? There's like, but you should be able to, so this is where I think you're going to get something that sits on top of convex, right? So if everything is expanded to Fraxland, once you're staked in convex, like you can't move those tokens around. So now we need another money Lego to sit on top of convex that allows you to get a receipt token and then go use that in Fraxland. I think that's the future. Like the staked Frax 3 curve, or just like the 3 pool or something. Like we should be providing 3 pool liquidity, or like try crypto liquidity soon for convex tokens. Like convex try crypto would be a great addition. I wonder why we haven't done those yet. It just seems like natural, since we're so closely connected with convex. Somebody to ask. I'm sure C2TP has it back in his mind. So, yeah. So that's gonna be it. Let me just check the forums to make sure there's no active snapshots. No, there's no active snapshots right now. Everything the Gearbox one passed, the fee structure for Frax passed, and the Rage Quit passed as well too. So looks like there's some more stuff. There's some more like Fraxland AMOs coming, and yeah. I'm just going to keep an eye out to see if we get any more like Rage Quit pools, because hopefully, I know there's some other pools that people want to Rage Quit from, but you know,
I mean, this is bear market things. This is when everybody comes out of the woodwork and be like, "Hey, he's out. I want to be out too." Like,
yeah.
So be ready for the deluge of proposals of rage quitters.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. All right.
Well, that's going to wrap it up for this week. That was pretty good. I'm going to go back and just watch the charts and cry a little bit.
Same. I too will go and cry. We'll at least hold each other. All right. You want to sign us out, Sam? Yeah.
So I really enjoyed having all you guys on for this week's Frax Check. You can find me at traders_insight.
You can find me at 0xcapital_K.
And we'll see you next week.
Peace.
Peace.